Hello friends, Tal here, and welcome to a brand new video talking about tanks and tanking in Legion, where we're at, how we've come here, what's going on. Now, to start off with, I've missed the shit out of you guys. I haven't made a video in a very long time. I apologize for that. This isn't the video that I wanted to go ahead and make because there's a bunch of things that I want to focus on and do, but I thought that it'd be important to start off fresh with a clean slate and just start off going here. I'm going to let you guys know I have a plan to try to kind of get my content a little bit more on schedule. If you've seen the Monday Mark, you already know what I'm talking about. But again, just to let you guys know, I'm trying to refocus myself and get something good done for not just myself, but for you guys, for the content and the channel in general. I don't want it to die, and I've missed making YouTube videos. So I thought, why not go ahead and start off with something nice, easy to do, and what I think is going to be important moving forward as we approach 7.1.5 and a lot of really different class changes that are going to be coming in, not just for tanks, but as the game as a whole. So to begin with, I want to step back and take a look at the beginning of the expansion, how Legion started, and the state of tanking when Legion started. I want to say that it began very unbalanced. There was clear disparity between the different classes. There was one that shined above all others, one that was the solid rock foundation, and then the others that kind of have settled into their place. And we've eventually reached this point now where everything's kind of okay, but things aren't okay because they were designed okay. Things are sort of okay because our gear has gotten out of control. We have legendaries all over the place. There's all these outside factors that have kind of made us be smoothed out and sort of balanced, but not because it was really designed in an intelligent manner. At least that's the way I feel. Now again, I've already let you guys know I'm of the opinion that tanking in Legion is fun. I enjoy it. I enjoy it immensely. I think a lot of the classes are enjoyable to play. It's just that they're not all the most effective or practical. You have Prot Warriors that started off the expansion so strong, just ridiculously strong, from how their artifact worked in conjunction with their talents, and how Ignore Pain just let them ignore the world. But so strong that they got hammered. They got hammered quite a bit. And while they are still very strong, solid tanks, they are not the shining gods that they were at the beginning of the expansion. On the other hand, you have Guardian Druids that started off very strong, very solid. They don't have too many crazy toys or utility spells or anything too ridiculous that makes them just like cheese mechanics, but they were always strong, they were always solid. The Ironfur gave them so many different options that combined with trinkets and combined with potions, combined with the neck enchant, and they've just been very solid to the point where now that warriors are brought down a little bit, Guardian Druids, in my opinion, are the best tanks right now. They're very solid, they're strong, they have access to a lot of unique legendaries that give them different choices, and frankly, I think their artifact trait, their tree, their artifact weapon, all that kind of stuff, it's one of the best designed ones on the entire game. I think there's only about 2 useless quote-unquote traits, and everything else really does help your tanking out. Then you move down a little bit into Protection Paladin. Now, Prot Paladins have always had crazy amount of utility. They've always had the ability to cheese certain things. You can use spell warding in Emerald Nightmare and Trial of Valor to cheese a lot of things, to be really strong. Bop is amazing now that it lets melee DPS players still attack while being completely immune to physical damage. Prot Paladins are really, really good. Okay, but they're a little squishy, they're a little spiky, but they're fantastic. And I think that when we started the expansion, they might have been a little bit on the lower end. They received some buffs that kind of brought them back up. But I think that they're sitting in a very comfortable spot to the point where a few buffs here and there going into Nighthold, going into 7.1.5, could really make them start to shine even brighter. And it's just ironic because, of course, they're the only shining tanks with all their glorious spell animations. But overall, I think Protection Paladins are in a very decent spot, minus the little bit of spikiness here and there that they kind of have going around them. And then we go ahead and hit the Demon Hunter. Now, I've said a billion times, Vengeance Demon Hunter is my absolute favorite tank. It is, in my opinion, one of the best designed classes in the game. I love how everything flows together. I love how everything feeds into each other. I find it so much fun to play it. They're not so heavy on self-healing that they get shafted like DKs. They're not so heavy on upfront mitigation that they can't bring themselves back up like Guardian Druids. They have a nice even balance, and you can even see now Vengeance Demon Hunters are basically the kings of Mythic Plus dungeons. They're the kings of doing damage. They burst for so much, and they're a lot of fun. They're just very well designed. They started off with a very spiky, unfortunate, unreliable nature. And as gear, which is, again, I called this out way early, but with gear, with legendaries, as we've moved up in and gone through a lot of more mythic dungeons, they've just gotten better and better to the point where they are very, very strong tanks. And they are looking to receive some changes and just honestly buffs going into the next patch that might make them the best tanks, just flat out. Like, they're going to be getting some pretty a nice change to the metamorphoses. They're getting some buffs here or there, some talent changes, moving around and such, PTR. So I mean, all this can change. That's why this video isn't specifically about the PTR changes just yet, but I see Vengeance as a class that could very easily be on top, if not already one of the ones on top, even though they started off not being reliable, because for progression, the beginning of the expansion, you need reliability. You need to be solid. You don't need to be doing the fancy, crazy toy stuff. You need to just be this unwavering rock that's not going to die on your raid, so they can focus on everything else. And now we come to the two, I would say, problem tanks, starting with Blood DK. Now, I would say that Blood DKs are also kings of Mythic Plus dungeons. I think that they do a fantastic job in there. They have a talent tree that lets them really choose and select how they want to mitigate some damage, what they want extra here or there, that lets them custom tailor-made themselves to an encounter or a dungeon. But mechanically speaking, I still find Blood DKs to just not work. Deathstrike is not the crazy healing that it used to be in the past. It's not going to be giving you a huge blood shield. That doesn't really exist as much. You have a lot more upfront mitigation, which is nice, which is good, but that mitigation comes at the cost of something like Bone Shield, which, for example, any tick of damage will remove Bone Shield, right? So when you're on a fight like Cenarius that has a raid-wide ticking debuff that does damage to you, you don't have Bone Shield up. It gets eaten every single second from those things, and you just lose your Bone Shield. You lose your block, essentially. That's a ridiculous flaw, something that they should have countered, and I think that they are countering with the next patch, because I think, mind you, PTR again, but I think they're making us only physical hits remove Bone Shield charges, which is too little too late, frankly. It's irresponsible that it reached that point. Combined with their general inability to really have any movement, and utility is still fine. They still have great utility, but I definitely see Blood DKs, and I know people have done all the mythic dungeons and mythic raids, and everything's fine, and you've done it with every single class and spec, and all that's great, but really, Blood DKs are a liability, and I think that it was unfortunate that these changes that they had were ambitious, they were interesting, they were fun, but they missed the mark and they were not well designed, and they cost them. It really did. Not to mention that their artifact tree is kind of weird and lackluster. I think one of their strongest artifact traits requires you to have Blood Shield up, and honestly, you don't have Blood Shield up as often anymore. So it's just it's a weird disconnect, I feel like, the way that the class was designed and how they envisioned it working. And then we come to the Brewmaster Monk, the class that was so adored and loved by many, such as myself, that was just abandoned in a mass exodus, and whom Blizzard constantly mentions is probably the highest skill cap tank and the most amazing tank, and it's overpowered and all this other stuff. Let me just get this out here right now. I think Brewmaster Monk is possibly the least burst damagey tank, and what I mean by that is that you won't get one shot on a Brewmaster. If you have Iron Skin Brew up, you will be fine. You can live through a lot of things. You can live through a Mythic Odin Thunderforged Spear, Lightning Spear, whatever the hell it's called, without having to run away, and you're fine. And that's very strong. It's very powerful. It's an amazingly unique thing that they can do. But that's all they can do. You have to understand, the world of tanking these days, it's not just, oh, can you live forever? Can the entire healing core raid of your team die and you're just still alive for 20 more seconds? Okay, that's great. But at a certain point, being tanky is not the answer anymore. You don't need to keep being tanky. You need to start doing other things. You need to have other priorities. And I think Brewmasters have a decent amount of burst damage that helps them, but their utility is lackluster. Whereas before, they used to have so many external things helping them and so much utility going out there. Now they have to choose between a talent that makes them do a lot of damage RNG-wise, or a talent that lets them have constant AoE on them all the time. They don't have Dizzying Haze to pick things up anymore. Their artifact ability is arguably one of the worst, even though, yes, it lets you avoid 3 auto attacks from a boss, but I mean, it's 3 auto attacks from a boss. it's unfortunate because I do see them as powerful tanks. I do see them as potentially fun to play tanks. But I also cannot look at a Vengeance Demon Hunter. I can't look at a Guardian Druid. Even a Protection Warrior has more useful utility than a Brewmaster Monk, and they do the job just fine. Yes, they can be bursted, but you cover that by just playing the class correctly. And I can't see those specs and think Brewmaster and say, I'm going to choose a Brewmaster because I'm a Mythic Raid tank and I'm trying to progress. I'm trying to help my team go as far as they possibly can. And I just don't see a Brewmaster as having the tools to do that. Which ultimately comes down to a very scary thing where the developers know and believe, and I think somewhat rightly so, that Brewmasters are some of the strongest tanks. But the community perceives them as weak, ineffective, unusable, and are pressuring them to buff them, to make changes and make them better. You put yourself in a situation where if you do too much for this spec, all of a sudden they are the gods. They can solo tank everything. Nothing can touch them. And they've already proven that they don't want to make changes constantly. That's why they've waited until 7.1.5 to make big sweeping class changes. You have to think about that for a second. It took basically as long as you needed to get your entire artifact done to then make the big class changes. And you have high artifact level knowledge levels to go ahead and cover that if someone needs to switch specs. That's a real dangerous place to be in because you don't want to overbuff a spec, but you also don't want to let it die and have the community perceive it as so weak and ineffective and terrible. I'm simultaneously very curious to see what they're going to do with Brewmaster, but also scared they're going to be doing too much. No one wants to have to feel like if you don't have a Brewmaster, you're screwed for a raid tier. You can't progress. And I mean, who knows what's going to end up happening, honestly. I don't think that 7.1.5 changes are enough to really push them that far, but there's still 7.2, which is going to be Nighthold. Then there's the 7.3, which is going to be Argus and everything else that they're going to be doing. There's still time for them to make a mistake, and that's a scary thought. Now, with all that being said, the additional wrinkle that you have to throw in is, quite frankly, artifacts. And how high level you have it, how much of it is filled out. You have to go in and think about all the different Titan Forge, Warforge, Mythic plus dungeon gear that you can have access to. But most of the gear in the game that's the best comes from dungeons, not even raids. And more than anything, it's just the Legendaries. Legendaries have been such a hot topic for the community, such a burning angry thing. I wish they would have just not done the Legendaries or made them all utility based. The recent reveal that there was a 4 soft cap limit and people were struggling to get over 4 even though they've had 4 for months, and just all the negativity surrounding this, I wish would have never tainted Legion. Corrupted Legion, if you want to get a little punny. But Legendaries, having access to important Legendaries can make such a big difference. I have a Legendary that heals me for 12% of my health every time I press Frenzied Regeneration. That's dumb. That's just strong. I have another Legendary that's giving me 25% extra damage on Thrash and Radiation on Thrash. I have 3 Relics that give me Thrash damage. Every time I Thrash, I'm chunking things around me. And that's not even to speak of 2 other Legendaries that I want to get my hands on. I can mix and match and make myself more powerful. I think it's smart that they're still sticking to the 2 Legendary limit, even though me personally having 3 now, I want to use 3, obviously, because I'm a greedy son of a bitch. But I feel nothing but negativity towards a Legendary system, and I wish they would have just not gone through with it. And that's the thing that you have to think about. They're going to be introducing more Legendaries for each class and spec. They're going to be changing specs, thinking just tanking, not even outside, ignoring healer changes, which have an effect on tanks, ignoring DPS changes, ignoring the different utility things that might happen. Just looking at the 6 tanks and 6 different potential new Legendaries that'll come in, the different demon, I think it was the Archimon trinket that makes you have an absorb shield for your health and then explodes and does damage. These Legendaries and these combinations are getting out of hand, and it's just a giant jigsaw puzzle mess of things trying to be balanced against each other and then still have a unique identity for each tank spec. I don't understand why they wrote themselves into this corner, but they've done it. It's here now. They have to deal with it. And my hope is just that I can cover all this information and really give you guys just a good view of what's going on and what you should focus on. And I want to go ahead and just say, again, I'm sorry I failed coming into this. My life has been a goddamn mess, but things are better now. I'm in a room with the doors closed. I can actually record stuff whenever I want to. I can stream more often now. It's going to be happening. And know that while I may have failed to do class guides for every single tank spec in the beginning of the expansion in 7.1, I promise you 7.1.5 moving forward, these are going to get done. Maybe not as long or as much as I want to, but I'm going to get them done for you guys. But overall, guys, that's just my thoughts here on the different tanking changes, the state of tanks from this point forward, going on through the expansion. And I mean, I'm interested to see how everything goes, but at the same time, there's a little bit of dread. I hope I don't get nerfed to the ground. Guardian Druids are on top right now, and you never want to be on top for too long. But yeah, guys, I mean, it's been a crazy ride. Trial of Valor, I can't wait to make a video about my thoughts on Trial of Valor, and I need to make one about Emerald Nightmare as well. That's probably going to be coming out next. But it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. See you guys around. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and drop it a like. You can subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content just like this. And I want to thank the time each and every single one of you took out of your day to go ahead and watch this, as well as a very special thank you to my Patreon patrons who continue to make this dream a reality through their monthly continued support. If you'd like to go ahead and become a Patreon patron, you can go ahead and click right there on the logo. It'll take you right to the page. And other than that, you can go ahead and tweet me or follow me at Tauriel here on Twitter. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, fantastic day. See you guys around.